Okay, greetings. Just to follow up on my previous video on Roger Penrose, and he was just interviewed again recently, a couple days ago, on Kurt Jagamal. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but and again, I just want to point out the irony that Roger Penrose was not able to understand Basil J. Hiley's non-commutative quantum potential analysis that Hiley first presented to Penrose in person in 2021. And Hiley did it again in his final YouTube live stream talk, March of 2024. Then he passed on in January of this year. And excuse me, let's see. So, yeah, Roger Penrose, he's been getting a lot of attention, which is great. I mean, he's focused on quantum consciousness, but he's coming at it from a relativistic point of view. And then he's saying that quantum physics needs to be fixed, which is true. But Professor Hiley, who was the collaborator with David Bohm, he figured out that Bryce DeWitt had published on the quantum potential in 1952, the same year as David Bohm. Just like a couple issues later in the same journal, the same volume of that year. And then Bryce DeWitt went off into focus on anti-gravity propulsion aircraft research in the US. And so the interesting thing is that the quantum potential is actually non-commutative, and this was the focus of Pascual Jordan in Germany in the 1920s and 30s. But Pascual Jordan then got covered up because he was a Nazi, so the Western science didn't really want to have anything to do with Pascual Jordan. But if you check out Pascual Jordan, he does say that his focus on non-commutativity was corroborated with the discovery of one-half spin being non-local and non-commutative from Dirac and Pauli. And so Professor Hiley is featuring the Jordan product that's non-commutative as the key to understanding this truth of reality. Excuse me. I made some homebrew hard pear, experimenting with some pear juice and active baking yeast. Let that ferment overnight and add some tea. Anyway, so yeah, it's pretty ironic because you have this like alternative propulsion physics community, but they're totally hung up by relativity. They don't realize that Bryce DeWitt actually was secretly focused on this non-commutativity as the quantum potential, the truth of the quantum potential. And there is actually a new talk on Bryce DeWitt's 1952 paper and comparing it with David Bohm. And it's by somebody who had heard Basil J. Hiley make this connection. And then after Basil J. Hiley's death, he gave a talk in July. I haven't even listened to it yet. I just speed read the transcript, and it looks interesting. But again, he's not focused on non-commutativity because this is whoever made this talk connecting Bryce DeWitt and David Bohm. He mentions Basil J. Haley in the beginning, but the problem is that everybody who was listening to Basil J. Haley, they did not realize, just how much he's focused on non-commutativity. And the irony is that I discovered Basil J. Haley because of my focus on non-commutativity. And that's why I very first contacted him. And he pointed this out, that there was a Finnish music PhD in Finland who was following him around for the same reason. Well, what he called it, phronomy, which is what Einstein called it, but this idea that you can have motion with no cause, instead of kinematics. And the phronomy, or phronometry is how Basil J. Haley was trying to pronounce it, because he's like, that's how Einstein called it. But anyway, so that was the non-commutativity that Einstein actually had discovered in like his final years, and Einstein even admitted that Heisenberg is the truth of explaining relativity unifying with quantum physics. And Haley's got a great quote on that. So anyway, I just uploaded a new paper about this, about Basil J. Haley's final talk and how he corrected Roger Penrose. And Penrose even admitted in one of his talks that he's not good at non-commutative quantum algebra for the mathematics. So that explains, when I realized, like, Penrose, doesn't really understand quantum physics. Like, he's coming at it from relativity, which is not too surprising, because that's like the big problem. And Basil Haley points this out. He's like, and also Professor John Bremolin points this out about Bell's inequality, that Stephen Hawking did not understand Bell's inequality. So Stephen Hawking didn't understand it, and Penrose was Stephen Hawking's teacher. Then it kind of makes sense that Penrose also does not understand Bell's inequality. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Penrose is waiting for Yvette Fuentes to finish her experiment, and he's like, oh, it's probably going to be like 5 years. And so Yvette Fuentes was just on Kurt Jagamal's, sorry to hack up his last name, but on his channel, talking about her experiment where she's testing Penrose's idea of gravity causing the collapse of the wave function. But Haley's big point was like, you don't even need a wave function with non-commutativity. That's all just a straw man argument, or a false, what do you call, red herring. Anyway, and the weak measurement experiments have already demonstrated that there's a gravitationally propulsive force. That the quantum potential is anti-gravitational force. So that again corroborates this like Nazi UFO Pascual-Jordan connection with Bryce DeWitt's anti-gravity research. And the funny thing is that the anti-gravity community, or the propulsion community, they can't even like wrap their heads around it, because they get trained in classical physics, and so they get brainwashed by relativity and the commutative geometry. And I don't know, I guess I got lucky, because my quantum physics professor was like, everybody should take quantum physics as their very first physics class. And not only that, but then he taught non-commutativity. He just called it the Dirac dance, which is the 720 degree spin. That's that's required to measure the electron as a collapse of the wave function. But in fact, the electron has 1/2 spin, which means it's inherently non-local. And then that gets you into the nature of the photon and the negative frequency inherent to the photon as a virtual photon, that then creates the 1/2 spin for the particles of particles. And so yeah, Haley says that the non-commutativity can be extended to the Dirac spinor and also the Penrose twistor. So I'll just leave it at that. And of course, Well, I will mention that then published on Quantum Biology, saying that the non-commutativity completely changes how we understand non quantum biology. And of course, that was my big point in terms of music theory and meditation. And Eddie Oceans had also made this discovery that non-commutativity was the secret of quantum psychology. So that gets you completely past the whole woo-woo dismissal of quantum biology and meditation and all that, and music connection to meditation and as quantum biology. And so somebody like Professor Dave freaking out, like, sound has nothing to do with light, blah blah blah. He doesn't acknowledge non-commutativity. So anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. That I put out this paper going over Basil J. Halley's final talk and sort of emphasizing again that he is correcting Roger Penrose, and Penrose was listening in on the talk. So I gave the links in the paper.